bring David Weinstein in here on all the legalities here. The former federal prosecutor joins us. So, you and I have had these conversations, it seems like over and over again, about what would happen. January 6th case, classified documents case, and now we know Jack Smith is moving, which I don't think surprised a lot of people, to dismiss here. Anything on this without prejudice versus not being with prejudice, that it could be revisited? I mean, what's your impression?
Well, Connell, this doesn't surprise me. He's now getting to write his own narrative, and he did that today by moving to dismiss without prejudice, by making a number of comments that this was being done for the good of the country based on precedent set by the Office of Legal Counsel, by the Department of Justice. You can't try a sitting president for criminal charges. It interferes with the ability of our country to move forward, but not commenting on the strength or weaknesses of his own case. And so that's why we're without prejudice. I mean, you just talked about what might happen down the road. We don't know what's going to happen 4 years from now. 4 years from now, his term will be done. There could be another Republican president in there, and then we won't have to have the conversation we've had before. Can you pardon yourself? The incoming president might see to pardon him, and then that's the end of the case. If the administration changes without prejudice means perhaps a Department of Justice might take it up again. But at that point, Connell, we're 8 years out from what had happened. Wherever our country is where our country is, and that's up to the Department of Justice to decide what they're going to do. What's more interesting is what's going on in the 11th Circuit on the classified documents case.
Why is that more interesting to you?
Well, because in that one, he's dismissed without prejudice against the former and soon-to-be sitting president based on the precedent that's been set by the Office of Legal Counsel and Department of Justice. You can't go criminally prosecute a sitting president. The other two individuals are private citizens. Their cases remain alive. But what's going to become more important there is, will the incoming Department of Justice, will they be willing to continue to write the briefs and make the same arguments that special counsel made? It's an interesting issue because, remember, the case got dismissed, not on the merits, but because it shouldn't have been brought by special counsel. Well, do you want to have that precedent sitting out there in the Southern District of Florida? It conflicts with other districts. What if the current administration wants to put a special counsel in place? Somebody will look at this and use the same argument. On the other hand, the president, when he becomes a president again, might pardon these other two private individuals, and that's the end of it. Or he might direct the Department of Justice to end the litigation, and then the case will be over.
Well, isn't that the most likely scenario here if you had to pick? I mean, we know how kind of the Trump team and Trump himself have handled these things in the past, or how they've looked at things like this in the past. I mean, they're not going to pursue that, are they?
No, they're not. There are briefing deadlines that are due prior to the end of the year. Whether or not those are met, I don't know. But you're absolutely right. The more likely thing that's going to happen is on January 20th, they're going to move to dismiss the 11th Circuit case as well.
I was wondering, I was asking, is it interesting, because you might have a different legal answer than our political guests had. We had a brief conversation earlier about whether Jack Smith should put out some sort of a report, because he's been clear to say, well, me dismissing these cases or moving to dismiss has nothing to do with the evidence that I've compiled. So would there be value in writing some sort of a report about January 6th, especially if there's evidence that has been compiled that maybe is not on the public record?
He's already written a lot in the public record. Remember, yes, there are sealed documents there, so he's already written a lot of what he was going to write. Because he moved to dismiss without prejudice, that means that potentially something could come up down the road. You can't comment on ongoing litigation. He's already tried to write the narrative in his own fashion. He's going to put together a final report. Whether or not that gets released, that's up in the air. I think that the odds are against it getting released for a variety of reasons, but I certainly think he's going to put together a final report.
Right, because the decision might be Pam Bondi's, potentially, because he could be the Attorney General by the time that happens, I suppose. All right, thank you, David. David Weinstein on all of this with Donald Trump. Now,